So it seems like a whole lot of us just made the switch from ChatGPT over to Claude. But of course, right on cue, OpenAI drops GPT 5.5, and it feels like it's starting a whole new chapter for AI. Let's break down what this really means for all of us. So the big question on everyone's mind is pretty simple, right? Is this new model actually good enough to make us switch back? To figure that out, we're going to put GPT 5.5 in a head-to-head battle with Claude, using the exact kind of real-world tasks that you and I do every single day. And I gotta say, the results are, well, they're pretty surprising. Okay, first things first, we need to get something really clear. When we talk about the power of this new model, we're not just talking about the same old chat window we're used to. No, the real revolution, the magic, is happening inside a new desktop agent app that OpenAI built called Codex. And that is the absolute key to understanding this. The big leap forward with GPT 5.5 isn't about having a slightly more clever conversation. It's about having an AI that can actually do work for you on your computer. Codex is built to perform tasks, to create things, and to use your software, moving way, way beyond just talking. So what can it do? Well, it's got 4 new superpowers. First, it can build real editable files for you. Think spreadsheets in Office or docs in Google Drive with formulas that actually work. Second, and this is huge, it uses your actual desktop apps, like your Chrome browser or your Notes app, with no weird plugins. Third, it browses the web all by itself to get a job done. And finally, it can design visuals and then build an app based on them, all in one go. You know, this quote really hits the nail on the head. For years, the problem with AI agents wasn't that they weren't smart enough. It was that they were clumsy. They just couldn't reliably jump between, say, your web browser and your spreadsheet program. That was the bottleneck. It looks like GPT 5.5 and Codex are finally starting to crack that problem, making them genuinely useful work tools for the first time. All right, let's get to the main event. To really see what this thing is made of, we're pitting Codex, running on GPT 5.5, against its biggest rival, Claude. We gave both of them 4 identical real-world tasks on the very same machine. No tricks, just a straight-up showdown. First up, a pretty common task for a lot of us. I handed both agents a YouTube video. This one was about a home plumbing repair, and I asked for 2 things: a complete list of every single tool and material used, and a step-by-step summary with timestamps, so I could just skip to the good parts. And wow, the difference was immediate. It was night and day. Claude gave me this generic overview of plumbing systems and some really high-level timestamps, like it just kind of skimmed the video. Codex, on the other hand, pulled out every single tool and material by name and gave me a super detailed second-by-second summary. Round 1 is a knockout for Codex. Okay, for test number 2, we've got something a content creator might do all the time. Take a really long podcast and chop it up into 5 short, vertical video clips that are ready to go up on social media. And this just perfectly shows the difference between getting a plan versus getting a finished product. Claude asked for a bunch of permissions, and then all it gave me was a text list of clip titles and timestamps. It basically gave me homework. Codex, it didn't ask for a thing. It just delivered 6 actual MP4 video files, already cropped vertically, totally ready to post. It just did the work. All right, for test number 3, we threw a design and coding curveball at them. I gave both AIs just a single image, a slide from an Apple keynote, and I said, recreate this exactly as a web page. The result here, I mean, you can just see it. They're visually stark. Claude kind of got the basic layout, but it felt like a wireframe. The fonts were all wrong, images were missing. Codex, however, delivered a near-pixel-perfect copy. It nailed Apple's unique typography, the charts, the phone mockups, even the dark theme. It understood the design, not just the basic structure. And for the final showdown, the most complex test of all, I asked them both to build a playable 3D game from scratch, all from one simple prompt. I want to be a tank shooting UFOs flying overhead. And again, it all came down to execution. Claude's game, technically it worked, but the camera was locked facing forward, so you couldn't actually look up to see or shoot the UFOs. It was completely unplayable. Codex, on the other hand, delivered a real game. It had a cool neon UI, a working crosshair, the UFOs actually exploded, and it even added a health bar, an energy bar, and a score counter. It wasn't just code, it was a whole playable experience. Look, these short tasks are one thing. They're impressive. But the ultimate test of an autonomous agent is seeing what it can do with a really big project. So the source's creator gave Codex a single brief to build a complete Mac app. And then they just went to sleep. 9 hours later, this is what they woke up to: a fully functional app called Content OS. Codex built the whole thing completely on its own, making its own decisions without asking for permission. Not a single line of code was written by a human. I mean, this is where things start to get truly mind-blowing.
And the app it built is seriously sophisticated. It's got a live dashboard, suggests content to repurpose, and even has its own little co-pilot so you can just chat with your data. But here's the most incredible part. At one point, an API connection failed, so Codex, all on its own, programmed a workaround to serve older cached data to keep the app from crashing. It didn't just follow instructions. It encountered a problem and solved it.
Okay, so we've seen what this thing can do, which is amazing. But how does it work? Let's pop the hood for a minute and see what actually makes the new GPT 5.5 model tick. It really comes down to 3 huge changes. First, it's way more efficient. It just gets straight to the point. Second, and this is absolutely critical, it has a much, much better memory. It can hold context across enormous documents or entire coding projects without getting lost. And third, it's just more autonomous. It can handle complicated, multi-step jobs without needing you to hold its hand the whole way. And this chart right here, this perfectly illustrates that second point about memory. On OpenAI's own tests for long context, which is basically the ability to track information through a massive amount of text, the jump from the old model to GPT 5.5 is 5 times better, a 5x improvement. That's the biggest generational leap they've ever shown, and it's the technical secret behind how an agent like Codex can manage something as complex as building a whole app by itself. Now, if we look at the hard numbers, the benchmarks tell a really interesting story. GPT 5.5 is ahead on most professional knowledge work, actually getting the highest score any model has ever gotten on that test. But, and this is important for a fair fight, if you're just editing a single isolated code file, Claude Opus 4.7 still has a slight edge. The real gap opens up when the work gets messy and involves thinking across a whole system. So let's bring it all the way back to that first question we asked. What's the verdict? Which AI should you be using right now? Well, the honest answer is it really depends on what your day-to-day work looks like. If your job is almost entirely writing code inside of isolated files, then Claude is still a fantastic, very competitive choice. But if you're like most of us, and your work is messy, jumping between different tools, apps, and dealing with complex projects, then GPT 5.5 and this new Codex agent are a massive leap forward. And all this leaves us with one final, kind of provocative thought. For years, we've all been talking about this future where anyone, not just programmers, can build their own software. What we've seen today suggests that, for the very first time, that future might actually be here. So the question isn't really if it's possible anymore. The real question is, what are you going to build?